catching a little walk. So I know if you are like most of us, you probably tuned in last night to watch the debate between Vice President hopefuls JD Vance and Tim Walz. And so everyone is talking about who won the debate. And I think arguably the big question is going to be who the audience was for this debate. I don't know that for most people it really moved the needle. But if I were to put my thumb on the scale and say who I thought won this debate, I would actually be giving it over to JD Vance. I know. Y'all are shocked. Like, and Coyle, what are you talking about? And I do think that, we're all on our teams. We have our collective views. Obviously, this debate was not for me. I've already decided who I'm voting for from a long time ago. But the reason why I really think that JD ran away with it is not about what he said. It's more about what he did. And so let me take us back, right? Because when Tim Walz hit the scene, he gave us the business, right? He classically, famously branded JD Vance and them as weird. He did a really great job. We all started to look at them through the lens of weird. We heard everybody talking about weird. We watched JD at the donut shop. It was weird. So like we all had that. He branded him very distinctly as weird. He's like, those guys are weird. And I feel like in this debate, he showed up, to quote our girl Jules, very demure, very mindful, very cutesy, but I don't know who asked for that because I think in the midst of that, he lost the plot. So here's the thing, right? We're doing messaging. It's an ongoing thing. And I think for anyone who's a leader, this is really important for you to think about, especially if you're in the change leadership space and you're trying to get people to go along with you, to do something new, to try out something that's not tested, that's not familiar, etc. You got to have a storyline, a plot, right? We always talk about the hero's story in marketing, the hero's journey. And so the plot was these guys are weird. They're extreme. They want to do things that are anti-American, that are undemocratic. They're like really far out there. This is the fringe, and we can't allow the fringe to take back seats of power, right? That's the story. That's what we've been talking about. That's a lot of these things. I feel like Harris did a great job of keeping that plot line during her debate with Trump, where she was a famous great moment where she was like, that's extreme, right? She let him rail off and just looked at him kind of like, oh, wow, like, are you okay? So I feel like she did a great job of keeping the plot there. They are extreme. They're not like us. And I really was hoping Tim would come and give us some of that he's not like us energy. But what JD did that I thought was really quite brilliant was consistently position himself like Tim. And here's why that's powerful. One, Tim, I think, is really endeared. There's a lot of people who are fans of Tim. He's the dad next door. He's the Coach Walz. Like, he really tracks on to all of these things that are very American, very wholesome, so on and so forth. And JD jumped out the gate just being a total bro. And a lot of us were not, are not, will not be with it. But what he did for about 90 minutes on that stage was constantly say how he was similar to Tim. He often used the tactic of saying that he agrees, even though he's saying things that are like super wild or like, we're on the same page, essentially. And I think Tim fell into that a couple of times of being like, yeah, we agree. And what I really wish he would have done was been more of, we agree on that today, but we're not the same. You are not consistently on this message. And there was just a lot of agreeability. And as someone who lost a campaign because people didn't see the daylight between myself and another candidate, I think that you have to be very careful when you are positioning yourself against someone or a system, etc., to make sure that you consistently show how you're different and why that difference is important. Because otherwise, you're losing the plot and you're losing people. And to the extent that this debate really moves the needle, I don't know. I'm not really convinced that it's entirely that impactful. Neither of them are top of the ticket. But to the extent that the Harris-Walz campaign is saying that it's not just that you should pick us because Trump is on one, but like, look at his second in command. This guy's like even worse. And that's a little deflated. And so I feel like they really need to do some work to make sure that they show that even though JD positioned himself as like, a regular guy who just has a difference of opinion about how we do things, who used his elite education to make some stuff sound a lot better than it has been on that stage, that they have to make sure that they're continuing to make the distinction that they are not like us, that this is not the same, that the JD that showed up today is not the same JD who has been on the campaign trail, is not the same JD that was anti-Trump before. And honestly, JD could have had a debate by himself with just the different versions of himself, and we would have landed in very different places. And I think that that's really what they should be doing, thinking about that moving forward, is how do we remind people of who JD has consistently or inconsistently been? Because the other challenge we have to think about when we're picking leaders and folks who are going to lead us through change is whether they have a principled direction. And the problem with JD Vance, and a lot of attorneys have this too, right? You can debate any sides, you can argue all sides, but there's no principled line. And it doesn't really seem like there's anything that he won't do or won't say for power. And that's probably not the person we want to put in charge of an entire country. That's my personal opinion. You're free to have your own, but I'd love to hear what you think about the debate. Who won? Do you agree? Did we lose the plot line? Does it matter? Do you feel like I'm totally off base? Let me know. And if this was interesting or useful for you, I do have a podcast, Nkoyo Unscripted. We give you your weekly dose of unfiltered insights at the intersection of law, leadership, and learning. It is available on all platforms, and our new episodes usually launch Sundays at 8. All right, well, let me know in the comments. What do you think? You off base? No, girl, he didn't win. Well, I can see that. What's your thoughts? Let's talk about it.